Here with Robin from Liquidium today. And so today is a big day for them because they just recently launched ICP for Collateral on Liquidium Fi. And I've gotten the chance to get to know Robin over the last couple of years when they kind of came into the ICP ecosystem with you guys kind of got started with instant rune loans. And then we obviously got to hang out a bit in Las Vegas, which is a great time, Mike Tyson's old house, and the conference and stuff. And you guys have been really busy, and so I'll hand it over to you, to kind of say what you're, up to. I know you're really excited about the ICP crowd. You guys have been going crazy with it on social, so
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks for having me. And yeah, it's been quite an interesting ride so far. So over the past 4 years, basically starting with pure layer one Bitcoin loans in the peer-to-peer space with ordinals and runes, as you already mentioned, and then kind of seeing the limitations of what's possible with Bitcoin to then discovering that we can use ICP under the hood with chain fusion to essentially work around some of these limitations while keeping the user experience true to Bitcoin, to then ultimately thinking about, okay, what else can we do with ICP and Chain Fusion, to then coming up with the idea of essentially building this cross-chain lending platform, which we have now, where you can borrow assets on all sorts of chains. Well, right now it's Ethereum and native Bitcoin and ICP now as well, against each other in kind of a seamless way without having users to kind of like use custodial bridges or any of that finicky stuff where unfortunately a lot of hacks happen and people lose money and so on. So we kind of want to take all of that away, and this is finally possible. And yeah, we started this new platform with the idea of the main unlock here is to be able to borrow USDC and USDT on Ethereum against native Bitcoin. Obviously, there are other chains that we want to integrate with as well, like Solana and some of the layer twos on Ethereum. But that was kind of the primary use case. Uh, but because we built this on ICP, the ICP community really rallied behind this and wanted to also use their ICP tokens as collateral to then borrow stablecoins on other chains or even borrow native Bitcoin against it. So that's what we've been busy working on. And Monday was the day where we released this feature. And yeah, definitely got well received by the ICP community. I'm very happy that there is still such a large community, even in this like tough market right now. I would say I think
Mhm.
everybody is bleeding, every project is bleeding, Bitcoin is bleeding. But it's good to see that there's still such a strong community. And yeah, now it's finally time that people can borrow all sorts of assets against ICP and even also CK assets against ICP, which is also something I think not a lot of people know, but you can actually borrow CK USDC, CK PTC, CK USDT against ICP as well on the platform. But if you don't want to interact with ICP, you don't have to, basically.
Yeah, no, it's really clutch that you have the CK assets as well. I know those are still, people have their choices on ICP. A lot of them, you're gonna notice they mostly love just the main token or a few memes and stuff. But um, as far as like where we're at in the market, I love that you touched on like tough times, bleeding times in the market. It's been like 8 months of like down period, or at least it seems like. Well, in crypto, that's like a decade, but as far as like things go, it's a good time to consider potentially taking out loans if you're very convicted with where the market's going. Obviously, Clarity Act potentially passing soon too. So, if that passes, a lot of people are saying that trillions of dollars are coming into the market. So, if that happens, this could be an ideal time, if that makes sense to people. But obviously, risk tolerance and all that is a major factor in there too. But I love that you have multiple assets, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and ICP, and then Solana coming into it too. When you say EVM as well, there is one that comes to mind that's been kind of like on the up and up, and it's like from Stripe for a stable coin, which to me would make sense for you guys as well. There's Tempo, and so I'm sure stuff like that's coming in because they got like Facebook and all that. So um, for that, like you're gonna have a potential chance to grab in like a lot of creators and stuff too, which I'm sure you guys are already like on top of like what you guys are all adding in. So I'll leave it at that. But one of the things that um, you know, the ICP community has been seeing you and your team around because you guys have been working pretty closely with Definity on certain cases and stuff, and heading over to the HQ and stuff. What has it been like for you guys getting kind of established? And one they have videos with you guys on their channel and all that. So and then Pierre was rocking a Liquidium hat in Davos, so that's got to be a pretty good feeling for you guys. What has that relationship been like for you guys overall?
Yeah, yeah. So it's been amazing working with Definity, and as you said, like over the past years, we really got to know the core team at Definity, and I think at this point also it's good to have like alignment with the team there on in terms of like what are the priorities, like what things should they be focusing on, what things should be we be focusing on, and kind of like moving together as one unit to some degree. I mean, obviously we're like different companies and
Hmm.
not involved with each other when it comes to like any terms of any sort of like equity or entity relationships. However, at the end of the day, the goal here is to use the technology that Definity has built and bring it to as many people as possible. So we're very much aligned with that goal. For us, we are using the technology because at the end of the day, I think right now it is the best technology in terms of like the capabilities of doing cross-chain things with it, and the security that it gives the user and also us as a platform, as well as the user experience, because we can totally abstract ICP away. And it's not even something. This is something that I actually really appreciate about Definity and ICP, is that they do not like they don't care if ICP is the main like advertisement, right? Like we generally advertise our platform as a cross chain lending platform. We advertise the fact that you can use native Bitcoin, that you can get stable coins on Ethereum, and the technology under the hood happens to be ICP, but it's not necessarily something that is like first row, like front page on our website. It just happens to be the best technology that we use, and that's very much in their interest. Like they don't want to shill their token or their network or like any of that sort. We use it in a very much abstracted way, where it allows all people to have a better user experience, and obviously also the ICP community. And I think this is very exciting. And yeah, so like at this point, I think we have a lot of like meetings with Definity, kind of discussing around okay, what should we do next in terms of the CK side of things, the chain fusion side of things? How should we approach stable coins? And also what you said, like there is very interesting new networks and new stable coins coming. How can we kind of bake that into the system that we do not add new trust assumptions, but basically keep everything as secure and as good of a user experience as is, without us having to build any new sort of like bridges or anything like that on top of it, but we can stay to the like with the true native tech stack that we have at the moment. And that's a very fun experience to kind of work with such an incredible team on that.
Yeah, no, they're wonderful, and I remember in Vegas we were talking about uh, basically chain key and all this when we were in that suite and stuff. But basically, what you said at that time was you wanted to give your users the best user experience, and that's what brought you into the internet computer. And because like when we've been in crypto for all these years, right? And clearly there's still a lot of friction points before the public can get in and understand it. And when you have something like ICP where you can give faster transactions and maybe a little bit less where you have to sign and do as much, it gets rid of some of that, like that friction point, which would be very confusing to to a lot of people I know if they had to go through those steps and stuff. So I want to give you flowers for finding that, because I think everyone in crypto has seen that meme of like someone playing a video game and then like signing 100 transactions and stopping, and with ICP you don't get stuff like that. Like you can actually just play the game and enjoy it. So I think more and more people will kind of get interested into the idea of giving their users better user experience. And obviously you guys are focused more on Bitcoin, but including other networks, you have a chance to really pull more people in and bring them in from other networks. And you guys are already really established on Bitcoin, and as you said with Definity, for them, they really lean into the whole cross chain thing, and uh, like they've always been going to the Bitcoin conference. And as far as like if there's a project out there that's listening to this recording right now, then like if you're doing something weird that's targeting web 2 and you want to give users a good experience with crypto and AI potentially, however you're building your thing, like Definity loves that kind of thing. And that's really like who they're targeting is people that are outside like web 3 and people that come from other ecosystems specifically. So I think for anyone looking to get in a relationship like that, that's probably where you're going to get your most support, I guess. But in general, like love what you guys have been doing. And I know you've been really busy. Obviously, I've seen you traveling around from Davos to where you're at now. I won't say, but what's kind of up next on your agenda after this release? You're kind of getting your feet wet with the collateral and stuff for Internet Computer, but what comes like? Is there something on the agenda for like in the next like month or couple months and stuff? What does it look like for you guys?
Yeah, so there is like quite a few things that we have on our roadmap, but I think like for the ICP crowd, probably some of the interesting things that we're working on right now is partnering up with Oisy Wallet to bring like a better Oisy Wallet Connect experience to our application. Their team is working on some very neat features that are specifically targeted for our use cases, so that basically Oisy can become like a first-class citizen wallet in our system, and that experience will be very good, I think. And then also we recently released our SDK, and also busy building like building ICP functionality into that SDK right now. So hopefully that will be like done by next week. My dev team will probably like kill me if I say this, but
Next week for sure. Monday.
next Monday, and let's do Monday. And so there we're also hoping that some of the ICP projects also integrate that SDK, because there are many use cases of what you can use lending for. For example, Oisy Wallet can integrate the SDK right into the wallet, where then people don't even have to go to Liquidium, but they can just like use the Oisy Wallet to borrow against their Bitcoin or borrow against their Ethereum. CKETH is another one that we're building in right now. So native Ethereum support as well as CKETH support. I think that's something that's highly anticipated. Solana, where basically, I don't know. I think this is known information already, but Divinity is working on their integration with Solana. So they are bringing like stable coins on Solana to Liquidium, as well as Solana support that you can also borrow against Solana and so on. So these are some of the things that we're working on at the moment. And that should be coming within the next couple of weeks. We're trying, like at the moment, we're trying to have a cadence where we have like one major feature release every week. It's hard to stick to that schedule, or at least like one major asset that we're listing on the platform. But so far it has been working quite well. And in terms of like the long term future, where I see Liquidium is like right now, the main obvious use cases are two things. One is you want to hold on to your assets for a longer amount of time. Like, for example, let's say you have some Bitcoin. Right now, the market obviously is bleeding, so it might be a good time to buy Bitcoin at the moment. No financial advice, of course. I'm personally buying Bitcoin right now, and then at the same time, when you're buying right now, you're probably investing over a longer term horizon, and therefore you don't want to sell during the bad times. Like, you kind of want to wait until hopefully we have like a next cycle peak, and then there's a good opportunity to maybe realize some of your gains. But until then, you might still need liquidity without wanting to sell your Bitcoin. So that's kind of like one of the prime use cases, right? Like just being able to keep your assets, get liquidity against it. And then the other piece is sort of from a tax perspective. I mean, this is again no legal advice here or no tax advice, but for example, in a lot of European countries, and I'm sure in other countries around the world as well, you have like a minimum holding period of 1 year. So, for example, in Germany, the way that crypto is taxed is if you sell within 1 year, you have to pay capital gains taxes on the crypto. However, if you hold for more than 1 year, it's tax free essentially. So people that maybe bought too much Bitcoin and now they're like in a squeeze where they need liquidity, but they might have made like a bunch of gains on their crypto so far. They don't want to sell. So same story again, like you don't want to sell, you still need liquidity. That's kind of what it is for right now. But that's like right now it's very much this longer term horizon thinking, right? What I find very interesting is integrating it, and you kind of already touched on it with Stripe, is how can we integrate this to make your day-to-day expenses easier and better. One thing that I'm thinking of, and have been thinking of for quite a while now, is basically the ability to almost have some sort of like Liquidium credit card, where most of the crypto credit cards right now, what they do is like they sell your assets, right? But again, this is something that most people do not necessarily want in crypto. So I want to have this experience where you can fund your account with Bitcoin, you earn interest on your Bitcoin ideally, and you can spend money, but without selling your Bitcoin. So effectively you just have a line of credit against your Bitcoin, and then at some point, if you want to like repay that credit, you can do so. But yeah, effectively the ability to have your day-to-day expenses while like retaining Bitcoin, and not necessarily over that long horizon view, but more in a day-to-day view. I think that's a very interesting thing to achieve, and definitely something that's also on the roadmap, but probably more out there than like next week.
Yeah, the dev team will seriously get mad with that one. For like that, and then just being able to like withstand like large loans after loan, like because I'm sure there would be a lot of people that are like would move a lot of Bitcoin and stuff into that, but um and what one thing that you said that was really interesting too with the longevity of loans, because obviously like in crypto we usually see like 14 days as like the max, or 30 days, but that's something that ultimately has to change if we want to see like because if someone's taking a loan out for let's just use like 5 grand as an example, and all of a sudden those people are in a rush to trade and time the market or whatever in most cases, like is what it seems like with the the crypto crowd. And then so they need so many different things to factor in their favor in order to get back, or at least on like the degen side of like those loans. And then giving people like a year term and stuff, that would be really interesting to the crypto market. And giving flexibility, or even 2 years or whatever, which again, that seems like two decades in crypto, like with all this stuff. But there's a lot of cool things, being added with AI and other things going on too as well in the market right now. So you know, like if we want everyday people, outside of crypto, to kind of come in and potentially get exposure to something like this, it's going to need to have more more established timelines and stuff like that. And I love that you're going that route, um, just because I know some people, like, they'll try to go get a loan with crypto earnings and stuff outside, and it's just not possible yet. And maybe that's something that really comes in with clarity or whatever. But further out timelines, and being a early mover in that for natively in crypto, actually has a lot of upsides and stuff for you guys. So really excited about that. And then another
Just
thing,
just
go for it. Yeah.
to chime in here. So the like with our cross-chain loans, I just wanted to mention this here. But with our cross-chain loans, it's already no expiration loans essentially. So effectively, these are perpetual loans that just go on forever compared to our previous peer-to-peer model. And this is exactly for the reasons that you mentioned. Like, it gives people the flexibility to say, like, hey, I don't want to repay this maybe for the next 5 years, and then maybe after a couple of years I'll repay like a small portion of it, and then a couple of years later I'll repay the rest or whatever. So this actually, like, it kind of gives you the flexibility of doing either like micro super short duration loans, or even finance a house with it. Like if you have a lot of Bitcoin and you want to buy a
Yeah.
house, like, yeah, you can do that with Liquidium effectively, and just take a loan against your Bitcoin, and just finance the house, and then pay it back in 10 years, 20 years, whatever timeline is convenient for you at the end of the day, as long obviously as Bitcoin doesn't collapse and the loan becomes like liquidatable. But so
So question with that. So are they expected, like, on something like that long, are they expected to like pay little bits back? Like, like US, if you take a loan out, you got to pay monthly, right? What was like, what does that kind of look like for you guys?
yeah, so the way that the loans work is, effectively, the only thing that you have to look at is the loan to value ratio. So loan to value ratio, meaning basically how much money did you borrow and how much money is there as collateral. Let's say, very simple example, you deposit one Bitcoin, and that one Bitcoin is worth, let's say, $65,000 right now. Now you could borrow, for example, 30, let's call it $40,000 against that. And now that loan to value ratio, well, let's make a simpler example. One Bitcoin is worth $100,000, and you borrow $60,000 against that. Now that is a loan to value ratio of 60%, right? So 60% of the total value that you put as collateral is what you borrowed. So now that is like, if the loan to value ratio exceeds 74% at one point, so let's say Bitcoin crashes, now you will get notifications from Liquidium to say, hey, your loan is getting more unhealthy right now. Either top up the collateral or repay some of the loan to keep your loan healthy at the end of the day. Because
Okay.
what you don't want is that your loan reaches a like the liquidation threshold, because as soon as the loan would reach the liquidation threshold, what would happen is that part of your loan, so part of the collateral that you deposited, would become basically liquidatable for liquidators, meaning they can repay part of the debt of your position and then in return claim some of your collateral to bring your loan back into a healthy position. So it's not like if a liquidation is reached, it's not like, okay, suddenly you lost all of your collateral at once and now you're stuck with debt or anything like that.
Hmm.
It's more like, okay, if a liquidation threshold is met, then part of the loan will be liquidated, like part of the collateral will be liquidated, and some of the debt will be repaid in that regard as well, like in that same flow as well. So that brings your loan back to a healthy position. But ideally, obviously, you try to keep your loan to value ratio at a healthy level, and then kind of like sometimes just top up the collateral, sometimes repay part of the position if the Bitcoin price fluctuates heavily. But if the Bitcoin price is only going sideways or up, then you basically don't have anything to worry about. It's only if Bitcoin is dropping, then the collateral value obviously needs to still be sufficient to keep the loan alive.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like, people that dabble with the loan side of things, like they gotta like appreciate that too, because it takes a bit to kind of draw down to that event. But and for people that are probably on the fence about like loans and stuff due to Bitcoin's price or whatever. Like I'll draw this back to the Bitcoin conference in 2023. Like, because this was in Miami and Bitcoin was like $16,000, right? Fast forward to like 2024 Nashville, it's back at like 40, between 40 and 50, and then all of a sudden Vegas in 2025 where Bitcoin was at like 110, 115, somewhere in that range, for the conferences. And now we're kind of just waiting for regulation and policy and all this stuff, it seems like, for the next phase of whatever crypto becomes. So now we're seeing more and more stocks get tokenized and all these things happen. Like it could actually be like like a decent time. Maybe it's still early. I don't know. Not obviously financial advice, but if you really think that, like, the way the market's going, and if these things kind of pass, it could be a really good time to consider a loan, and you don't have the pressure of paying, like, in 30 days back. You got your timelines that Robin's saying here, that you could take 10 years if you want. Like this is a really good option for those that could sustain potential volatility if it happens or whatever, at a reasonable Bitcoin price versus 100,000 and stuff. So I mean, this could be a really good time period. And I love that you guys like have what you got going, because it's been cool to see you guys just keep progressing and stuff. So I want to give you guys your flowers.
Thank you. And yeah, tokenized assets is also a very interesting topic, actually. Something I'm also very interested in, tokenized gold, tokenized stocks, and so on. Because at the end of the day, with the technology that we have, like we can effectively take any cryptocurrency onto the platform. Like the only thing is like it has to be very liquid. So in case of a liquidation, the assets are liquid and can be sold. And so that's kind of like the only bottleneck. But as tokenized stocks and tokenized assets are progressing, that space becomes much more viable as well. And I can't wait to have tokenized gold and tokenized SpaceX and tokenized Apple stocks on Liquidium as well, and just give people the ability to borrow against that as well. Like ultimately positioning it as a omni lending protocol that just can handle anything. And I I do believe that tokenized tokenized assets in general have a place to be there in crypto. Like it just makes sense to have the ability to trade 24/7, to not be like limited to just centralized exchanges that offer the stocks and the assets. So there's just so much more to crypto than just the current crypto assets.
For sure. Yeah. And, it comes back to people in crypto generally use crypto one for the safety and sovereignty that comes with it, right? But also, like, what if you need your money on a holiday or whatever? Like those kinds of things, or on the weekend, like banks are generally closed. Uh, you know, Stock market and like in general, a lot of people make money from trading and all of that, but they're not able to make their money on the weekend, like, then I think naturally it's going to be something that's open. Or if you're traveling, and over in a different region, maybe your your time zone difference is so drastic that you can't naturally trade the market that you want to trade in, and so it becomes more difficult. You have to adjust to maybe being on the opposite end of the schedule, and that's also inconvenient for people. So it's just naturally one of those things that's going to get more and more adopted. And agents are obviously trading and stuff now too. And to have a agent potentially trading in the stock market, and it's only a 9 to 5, doesn't really make sense to me. like like that's like totally what we're trying to get past and stuff. So for more and more agents, they're not going to be having like punch the clock in, punch out, and then that's it. So that would be not as effective as what they could be. So
That's true. Yeah, and then for agents, actually, I've built a like a little agent skill plus CLI wrapper for the Liquidium SDK, so you can actually give Liquidium to your Claude Code or Codex or whatever agent you use, OpenClaw, Hermes, and then it can already use Liquidium. So that's also quite interesting, and I think we'll see much more of this, like just agents at the end of the day managing finances for you. Because I noticed it for myself already. I think at this point over 50% of my day is just spent on an AI agent interface. Like I just have like my Codex app open 24/7. I have everything connected to it, and it just makes sense to just have like one interface or like one chat, one agent that can handle pretty much everything for you. So that was like a fun little project. But I think in the future this will become more and more relevant for sure as well.
yeah, and I'll definitely take a look at you guys' SDK, all that. I've been messing with the basically, and I know you've seen a little bit of the platform, but the stations are going to have their own treasury, and it's supposed to be where agents can get added into the stations and start managing treasuries. Maybe they're trading, maybe they're shopping, or doing marketplace stuff. And so they're gonna be like, my goal is to have them going crazy on there, and maybe those agents are taking out loans with you guys and stuff. We'll see how that all works out. But I'm definitely very excited for like what's currently possible right now with everything, and like where the market's going. And then we had just crazy news with SpaceX buying Cursor yesterday for $60 billion, and it's just like, dude, like it's just like never ending of what like what's gonna start happening in the market. And yeah, I mean, outside of what you're building, Robin, what are things that you're currently like really really excited about?
I think like we just actually the same day that we launched support for ICP on Liquidium, Definity also announced their new multi-chain DEX, which I think is very interesting. At the end of the day, like a healthy DeFi ecosystem needs a trading interface and a lending platform. And obviously, unfortunately, Swap is not around anymore on ICP. ICP Swap is still there, but I think having some sort of like order book style DEX that works cross chain makes a lot of sense for the technology that is on ICP. So I'm very much looking forward to that. It might be like a hyper liquid moment for ICP, and then at the end of the day, I think it will benefit the whole ecosystem.
So my internet completely went out. So I got like just I was literally just messaging you. So I was like, oh no, he's like right in the like the juicy part of it. Could you maybe rewind like 30 seconds on that, because you were excited about, you know, the multi-chain decks and what's possible there, but then all of a sudden like it went to you doing and then all of a sudden like the whole thing was messed up. So just a little bit, you don't have to do the whole thing. I know that was a little bit where I was gone. So
Sure, yeah. So, no, what I was saying is that, yeah, besides that and like sort of DeFi being built out more and more on the ICP side, the whole like AI topic is super interesting. And like, I mean, there is so much happening right now. And to your point of what you said earlier about ICP being an interesting place to build, even for people that do not want to do anything in Web3, so to say, no DeFi or whatever. ICP obviously has their caffeine, or like Definity has caffeine, which is their AI agent. And now they released that as an MCP, which is cool because now you can plug it into your Claude Code or Codex or whatever you use already, which allows you to build these like to essentially host apps or websites completely decentralized, and especially at the moment with the whole Fable drama, where the model was too powerful that the entire world can have access to it. So then the government kind of like stepped in and took it away again. It just like this the way where or like the where the world is heading right now. I think it becomes more and more important that you own your data, that you have kind of like sovereignty over um, the applications that you're using, the workflows that you're using. And it just makes sense to not use AWS exclusively or GCP exclusively, or even rely on any like third parties that are completely proprietary tech, but self-hosting and hosting on decentralized networks. So I think all of that is very exciting. And yeah, I'm like hosting my own models locally at this point. It's very fun to play around with. I mean, obviously they're not state of the art yet, but yeah, interesting topic as a builder, and very interesting times to develop stuff.
yeah, I recently, it was like within the last month or so, a teacher like at one of the schools around here hit me up. I went to middle school and high school and stuff with her. I ended up basically running a caffeine AI hackathon at their middle school college prep business courses. So we did a whole day of them building with caffeine, and like it was funny because like getting to see what these kids were all, you know, building, and you know, they asked so many questions about, you know, what's possible. And I'm like, dude, these kids, man, because like if I was, you know, in eighth grade again and I was in this time period, like what you could build, like building your own game in eighth grade would be crazy right now. And then, you know, some people are doing other kinds of apps, and in general, like they were doing what was like familiar to them, right? And so like there's a lot of cool ideas, and we're already seeing, you know, like 18-year-olds making $1 million raises, or you know, like crazy companies and stuff. Like it's just what an incredible time period to be like coming up in right now. And you know, and then what you mentioned, you know, with hosting locally, another like this massive influencer, PewDiePie, ended up launching like a project for like locally hosting AI and stuff for his viewers, and you know, he's like either still the biggest YouTuber or second or whatever, of all time, and just to do something like that, and people were like calling him crazy for it. Like he's done with YouTube. He's like messing around with AI. What does he know about AI? Well, then all of a sudden he releases something where locally hosted and all that, and like it's just really amazing to see people like kind of gravitating towards like the cypherpunk, like hosting local, save your data, protect all of it, because it is growing increasingly more and more important. And to touch on one other thing is like nations doing sovereign AI and all of that, like just because there's not a lot of trust in the world with what you could do with other people's data. And so I think we're just going to kind of see more and more of that ramp up here. And especially when global markets maybe are hurting or whatever, more and more tensions tend to arise. So I think it's just going to be kind of like a natural thing. And that's not to, be like political or anything. It's just, what I'm noticing and, seeing around in the market. But yeah, like as far as like anything else for you guys at Liquidium, Robin, where's like the best place people to contact you or get involved with your documents with SDK or reaching out with partnerships? Who do they need to go to?
Yeah. Feel free to reach out to me personally anytime. My handle is Robin Liquidium, pretty much everywhere. So find me on Twitter, and then also our handle, like the official handle of our company, is Liquidium on Twitter. Go to liquidium.fi to see our landing page. And yeah, I mean, we're especially during the bear market, we're very responsive. We're happy to onboard anybody who has more questions and answer everything. Yeah, feel free to reach out there to us and just play around with the product. We actually have a demo mode on the product as well. So if you don't want to like put real funds to use, just to kind of like play around with the platform, there's a little demo toggle that you can toggle, and then you can just play around with fake funds and see what the flow is actually like, which I think is pretty neat. And if you have any feedback, let us know. We're very much willing to implement and shipping faster than ever with the help of AI and our team, of course. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I don't want to take up too much of it. I know you guys are really, really busy. So I want to thank you for coming on the show here. And just in general, really happy to see you guys keep like pushing along, and really excited about ICP, being a part of what you guys are building, and where you guys go from here. So thanks again for coming. Appreciate you.
I do have a bonus rant for everybody who is watching over our ending, I
Yeah.
guess. But on the AI topic, um, so uh, I think with AI, blockchain actually becomes way more important, because what we're already seeing is that, especially when it comes to like images and videos and stuff like that, like we're getting to a point where stuff is getting more and more indistinguishable between like, okay, is this actually real or is this AI? And at the end of the day, if if you think about it, okay, it would be amazing if there was like a public database where we could verify stuff, where the origin is, and so on. And that is literally what the blockchain is. It's like a transparent database where you have everything public, all the information public. And I think this is like, I don't think that it makes much sense in the future. Like, if you do KYC with a bank and you have to hold your like, or you have to make an image of your passport to do KYC, like I can already do like fake a passport with ChatGPT in seconds. I don't even need Photoshop skills anymore for this. So we need more of this like verifiability, where we can see the actual origin. Is this data real? Is this data coming from a reputable source, and so on? And that is where I think like the blockchain is just so strong. So I think with the growth of AI, there will be a growth of blockchain technology. I think we will need blockchain in terms of like verifying identities, verifying proof of addresses, anything that sort of like needs verifiability. But then also in other regards, like financial transactions, AI agents need money. If we're thinking about AI agents shopping, AI agents kind of like trading and so on. And the best money for a computer is computer money, and computer money is Bitcoin at the end of the day. So it's just there's such a natural like alignment between AI and blockchain, that I think yeah there will be a lot of things that we'll see in the near future, probably also from like governments maybe even adopting more blockchain technology in various fields. That's just my take, and just wanted
Yeah.
to get
No.
this out there.
Oh, for sure. No, and I apologize. I didn't give you a chance to kind of go in from what I was saying. I saw the time and I was like, I don't want to take up too much of his. I know that, but I think it's funny too with like physical agents, right? Robots and stuff when they come out. They're obviously not going to pull out a wad of cash and like try to pay for something at a store, drop it, and then spend the next couple minutes picking it up and trying to pay. Like just not not possible to have it effective. um and so that again is something that the world will just have to be like amazed by when they see it happens. And in general too with agents, you touched on how there's going to be so many and they're going to be spending and all this. They're already like anticipating the next decade to kind of have about like an equal number of robots or agents, like just the robots side of it, about just as many as there are human beings in the next decade, which is crazy because these robots are going to build themselves and then get faster at doing it. So I don't know, it's just wild to kind of think about. And then with spending and the database for verification, or the identity and all that, obviously gonna get crazier with deep fakes, all that stuff, and what's possible for kind of like national security risks and stuff like that. It's going to be increasingly more important to use better systems that can verify in real time to give the upper hand on finding stuff. 'Cause, I mean, we look at these companies that have scaled to massive evaluations and stuff for um, just pretty much any industry, and they're still most of them are still using old systems that they kind of started with. Like that plumbing that they started with is pretty much what they've been limited to. And then like years ago, a year or two ago or whatever it was, I think it was like Southwest Airlines with their air traffic control systems going down or whatever, and then like pilots had to fly blind. Like all these different things are naturally like getting outdated, and it's getting easier to get hacked if you continue to use these systems. And we're already seeing hacks daily that aren't even being talked about nationally or globally and stuff, that are just wiping out businesses. So it's going to be a natural thing that we have to, keep progressing, getting new systems to kind of stay protected and give yourself the best fighting chance, whether you're, a big enterprise or, just an everyday person. Because like the scariest thing right now is that one, I have a lot of people impersonating me. Robin, I'm sure you have a lot impersonating you as well. With how much you're out and about. But I have people messaging my friends saying, "Hey, man, it's Kyle Stoflet." I'm like getting text messages from my friends, like, "Dude, this is like the third one this week," and and stuff like that. And it's just like, they sound weird right now, and your friends can pick it up on it right now, but they're not going to be able to do that, like as this stuff keeps advancing and stuff. And people can already make it look like it's your phone number or your voice when you call and stuff. And that's been something that has been going on for a bit. I know it's starting to get popular in I seen a video, a lady in Milwaukee where I'm from, uh, talking about someone basically calling and sounding like it was her friend for like blackmail for a scammer and all this. I'm like, that's been going on for years, and you guys are just now talking about this, like, and so it's just like people aren't aware until it is really a problem, and we need to make sure that we have the right people in place to like build out to protect others from these problems and stuff. So I think it's just going to get more and more crazy from here with everything kind of going on, and people can't keep up with how fast AI is. Like, even if you're online 24/7, you can't keep up with what's going on right now. It's just you would need like probably 1,000 agents like doing all this research and stuff for you and stuff.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, no, definitely. Like, just verifying actual stuff becomes way more important. And I think blockchain is the best place to have digital certificates of ownership and like the ability to verify origins of things. So I hope that uh, companies and governments realize this and use this technology more and more.
Yeah, yeah, me too. So, and I do think it's happening. I'm telling you, man. I think clarity is coming through soon. There's rumors that it's before July 4th. So I'm very hopeful of that. And if that does happen, it does unlock a lot of more, like, companies and institutions in general are able to start looking at the industry seriously for the first time, and a lot of them have just been kind of buying into the industry and getting prepared for when it does happen. Like, Walmart has one pay, and like Amazon pays their employees in Bitcoin if they want it, and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of companies that are willing to accept that crypto is here to stay. They just don't know how much they can put it into their business and stuff yet. So I think it's relatively soon. I would be surprised if it doesn't get passed through this year for clarity, but I think it's one of those important driving factors for us all. At least if you're native in the industry, is like, this is where people will finally be like, okay, it's legitimate, like, it's here to stay, and this is what we have to do in order to build our own businesses, or put it into our existing business so that we know what we can and can't do. So, but yeah, anything else you want to add in general, or are you good?
I
uh,
like
uh,
no, I think we covered pretty much everything. It was a very good conversation. Thank you
yeah,
again for having me.
always, man. I love you guys, and whenever I get the chance to talk with you guys, I'm always down for it. So
Appreciate it, and likewise. And yeah, I mean, everybody who's watching, check out Kyle's platform, the Swop. I think it's amazing. It's a good example of what you can do with just a one person team and AI these days. So very hyped to see what you're building there as well.
yeah, thank you, man. I like, real quick on it too, like, 'cause it's closed, like, to the public, but I let everyone sign, like, pretty much just invite people if they want to, and like, I'm gonna ramp up stuff, but people that invite others get, like, it's 4% rewards right now. It might have to get throttled later depending on how many people really start inviting and stuff, and but based off of participation and stuff, I think it's interesting what is possible for um, Web3, and I don't know. It's like a glimpse into my mind. Like, this is like all the stuff that I'm constantly thinking about, and I'm just like, dude, it's just gotta happen. So I'm working tirelessly on it. So if you're watching, definitely check it out. I'll hide a link in my Discord or open chat or something. So, but take care.
I'll also comment my invite link.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, no, for sure. Do that. Because like I said, like, uh, I have, obviously I've invited a lot with mine, but people can make a full ICP just based off of, you know, a couple users inviting and they're actively engaging with it. It's just one of those things where just compounds. So you know, I'm super thrilled for it. And once trading and all that's in, like, I think people are gonna go crazy with it. So I'm thrilled.
Yeah, best of luck.